Yeah, it is. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but I think that's the point of it, isn't it? I think if you all are genuinely, one team and striving for the same thing, then there really shouldn't be anything that's off the table. And to answer the question that came in terms of how do you ensure that the business knows, well, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing as the business grows and keeps in check, there's two things that we've done as we've grown to address that. One is on the all hands, the heads of different departments will opt to give a feed, take part of that session to update everybody on what's going on in their part of the business, but they don't have to. So it's not a case of, oh God, every week I've got to feedback on what we've done this week. It's if you have an update that you'd like the wider business to know, present that. So that happens. And then the second thing that we've done, which I strongly recommend to any size of business, is implement what's known as OKRs, so objectives and key results. There's a book called Measure What Matters, which talks you through how to implement something like this, but it just means that annually and quarterly you set objectives, and those objectives can filter down through different teams, but it ensures that firstly everybody in the business knows what's the priority that quarter, that half, that year, and so you're all focused and working towards the same thing. And then the all hands is the retrospective, looking back on what you've actually done. So we find those two methods work really well to make sure that everybody knows what's going on.
I think so, because I think if you want to attract somebody who wants a career with you, then having a plan to develop them from day one is really important. Coming back to what Heather said about these objectives, one of the things that always astounds me is a business owner will say, we need to increase fees. And there's the plan. We all need to increase fees. Now, I don't know any estate agency owner who hasn't had that conversation with their team, but how many have actually sat down with their team and said, what do you think we're worth? Have you ever sat down in your group and said, why are we different? Why should our fees be going up? What do you think our fees should be? Now, if that team feel confident, developed, qualified, trained, their overwhelming feeling of value is going to be so much higher than if they just feel they're being done to in terms of, all I've got to do is hit mortgage targets, all I've got to do is raise fees. So I think for me, development is key in achieving those key goals that Heather mentions, these quarterly goals. But also it's got to be bite-sized chunks. I mean, I'm not naive. I know how hard it is to develop a member of staff. And training is a really difficult thing. We did a survey and we got feedback, and a lot of the feedback was, I feel like I'm failing at training, from the business owners, because it's so hard to get it right. So little bite-sized chunks we've learned with Able Agent has been absolutely the key for it being measurable. And then each individual person can decide what their development looks like to them, which I think is really important.
I just think, just regarding the development, it's like training is very important. We use Charlotte's training platform, but also you've got to allow you guys the responsibility, but also the ability to make mistakes and know they're not going to be punished for it. So take on a task themselves, if they, but without fear of getting reprimanded if they get it wrong. We just had a case here very quickly where we've started working with Christian at Depository. So one of Jasmine D, my senior portfolio manager, my brother Neil is amazing at all this stuff. He could have easily taken that on. And he said to Jazz, this can be your project, you run with it. She set it all up. And then one of the best LinkedIn posts I saw that day was her on there, just saying how proud she was and how happy she was, because she'd done it and it was like her baby. And now, because we've given her that responsibility, number one, we haven't had to do the work. I don't have to worry about retaining her because she's not going anywhere, because she knows how valued she is and she's being allowed to grow. So it is just that if you develop them, you'll retain them, and you don't need to attract them, but you will be able to attract the people you want to attract. It's just a whole circle.
For me, developing people, I think there's two really just so obvious things for me. If your people don't need developing, it means they're better than you, they know more than you. Stand aside and let them do what they do better than you. Just stand aside and let them do it. If they do need developing and you don't do it, trust me, your competitor will happily do it for you. So you either let them free and do the job if they're better than you at it, or they're more developed than you at it. But if they're not, you've got to get them to your level and beyond. Otherwise, your competitor will.